Good evening and welcome from Auckland, New Zealand. My name is Scott Matheson and I'm the co-founder of Working in New Zealand. And welcome to this webinar on how to move to New Zealand. I'm very pleased to have a panelist today from Working In, who's originally from India, Hamneet. Hamneet, it would be great if you could introduce yourself to the audience.
Yes, thank you, Scott. Good evening, everyone. Good evening to all of you listening to us late in the evening in India. My name is Hamneet, and I'm a senior license advisor at Working In. I have been a license advisor since 2015, but working in this industry since 2012. So I'm hitting almost 10 years by early next year. And we'll be happy to guide you, whosoever wants to migrate to New Zealand. And because you need that proper guidance, you need to know how you can actually achieve your goals and make your New Zealand as a dream country to move in.
Thank you, Hamneet. Looking forward to today. So once again, welcome to you all from mainly India, but I can see that we have people from all around the world, South Africa, UK, Singapore, USA, whatever time zone you're in. We really appreciate you taking the time to watch us live and understand how can you move to New Zealand. We set this company up over 20 years ago, and we have literally helped thousands, tens of thousands of people move down under. We love to do this. It's our passion. We love this country, and we love to assist. So hopefully today you will get to understand what you need to do to migrate to New Zealand. So as Hamneet said, she's a licensed immigration advisor, and that's really important because licensed means that she has been essentially accredited by the New Zealand government to give advice, which means you as an individual are protected by the government in essence, because she has to give advice applicable to a code of conduct. So the good thing about migrating to New Zealand, if you used a licensed immigration advisor, is that you are protected all the way along, especially with your money, which gets held in a trust account until the work is done. So I think first and foremost, if you are considering migrating, it's really important whether you use us or anybody else that you use a licensed immigration advisor. And those are easy to find because they're on the website. Okay, so that's my starting point. To run through today, we're going to talk what's the current situation in New Zealand, what's happening with COVID. Hamneet will talk about the visa process and the immigration and how do we get a visa for New Zealand and how do you become a permanent resident and eventually a citizen with a New Zealand passport. Then we'll talk about the catch-22. So how do you get a visa, a work visa, which is the starting point, if you need a job? How do you get a job when you're overseas in New Zealand, especially now? And we can talk you through that. Our company is called Working In, so we're involved in work. We help people. So there's a solution for you that we can take you through. And then really it's about how to prepare for the job market and what's happening right now in terms of border exemptions and closures. So I'm not going to do most of the talking because Hamneet is the expert. But what I will do is I'll give you a current situation of New Zealand because I am in Auckland, the largest city, and currently we're in level 3 lockdown, COVID lockdown. We don't have a lot of cases relative to the rest of the world. I think yesterday there was something like 45 or 55 new community cases, and it's been that way for some weeks. And this is the Delta variant. So our government takes a very conservative approach. And so we are staying in lockdown until we have, got on top of the virus. At the same time, anybody who comes to New Zealand, who's not a New Zealand citizen, must be double vaccinated. So what we are thinking that sometime in the early part of next year, the borders will start to open. At the moment, we have a critical skills shortage in multiple industries. So if you are wanting to migrate and you do need a job to migrate, there's probably not been a better time because the shortages in skills is acute, especially in industries like health, and IT and construction. So we can talk a little bit about the job market now, but I think what we all understand is that this situation is temporary, and eventually, like the US, like the UK, the borders will open again. So putting that aside, how do you get to New Zealand? How do you get a visa? How do you get permanent residency? Hamneet, can you briefly describe the process, please?
Yes, thank you, Scott. I'll also take a thank you moment for our last webinar. We had an amazing response from our last webinar. There are a lot of people who contacted us, and a lot of people have actually started their process, who were super serious to come to New Zealand. They have started the process right away, even if the borders are opening, hopefully opening by early next year. So for all the new viewers or the existing viewers who are listening to us, there is a proper process that we follow. There is a proper guidance that we give it to our clients, and a very clear agenda on how to move to New Zealand. As currently, we are still at lockdown level 3. Our Prime Minister take it very seriously when it comes to safety of our human being. So that's why we are in lockdown level 3, but we're still working from home. There is no hindrance at all. So anyone who is interested, there will be a link attached to this. You can register and contact us. Even if you think that your role is not under certain list, contact us. There is always a way to bring you to New Zealand if the goal is to achieve to come to this country. On perspective of the visa view, as the borders are still closed, but there are certain occupations which can make a border exemption request. Scott, I don't know if you know, but I was contacted with the last webinar from one of the candidates who has actually been offered a job from a New Zealand employer. And we are currently liaising. So that's why the middle party brings a lot of clarity in terms of to the employer and to the candidate as well, and setting the right expectations, not just in terms of what are the requirements, but also in the time frames. So sometimes even the candidate expects, hey, I've got a job offer, the New Zealand employer is supporting me, can I get onto the plane right away? No, that's not the case. That's where we as licensed advisors come into the picture, where we maintain that level of clarity, both with the candidate and with the employer, to set the right expectations, considering the borders are closed, what are the requirements, you need to be fully vaccinated, MIQ must be booked, etc., etc. So all these things will be covered with, if you contact us with one-on-one session, to have that level of clarification in both the situations. When it comes to the visa process, we are dealing with a lot of clients and the employers who are looking to hire migrants from outside New Zealand. From last 2 years, since the COVID has hit all around the world, so there has been a little scarcity on the occupations which are super skilled. Because there is no influx of people coming in New Zealand, that's why there is a lot of demand. Demand in construction, demand in health, demand in IT, demand in even in the pharma industry. There is a huge demand of a skilled worker to come to New Zealand, and employers are getting ready. They know that the borders are going to open soon, and the employers are getting ready themselves that they need to hire right people to come to New Zealand. And honestly, people, whosoever is listening to us right now, it's first come, first serve. The more the application is all ready to lodge in, the quickly it will be picked up by immigration, and the sooner you will be able to get into the country. So the whole purpose is to actually be prepared beforehand, so that once the borders are open, we are fully equipped, fully ready, lodge it, and you're here.
So Hamneet, can I just interrupt you there? So yeah. If people are trying to get ready before the borders open, which I agree with, because you want to be at the front of the queue.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that need to happen. Okay, so first of all, in order to get into New Zealand, you do need a essential work visa, correct?
That's right.
But before that, you need to get a job offer.
Job offer. That's right.
You need the job offer. And with the right job offer, then we can help you apply to get the right work visa, correct?
That's right. That's right.
How do these people get residency then?
Okay. So what has happened before from the last webinar as well, where people have contacted me, and to make it a very simpler process for them to also understand, if you think that you are skilled, you're working in a skilled occupation, may it be in any sector, you can book in 15 minutes free consultation with us where we will review and we will do a proper eligibility assessment, which is named as My Visa Path. And in that assessment, you will have entire clarity on how you will be proceeding further. Coming here on a temporary work visa, what occupation to be targeted on, what should be the requirements for that visa. Sometimes I have come across certain applicants where they think that they are the only ones who are eligible or qualified, but apparently when we do the assessment, their partner seems to be more qualified and eligible in the current scenario. So definitely the assessment plays a big major part in getting them clarity. In terms of employment, we do have a very good recruitment team who may be able to help you in giving you the employment support. I always encourage my clients that do not be completely dependent on just one assistance support. We obviously guide you through the process on where to tap on, which occupations to tap on, what mode to be, targeted on. So we obviously support that. But we do have a recruitment team who can support you in certain criterias. Say, for example, you've come from IT background or civil engineering, quantity surveyors, health sector. We've got the team set up who can help you with the job assistance. Once the job is secured, we as advisors can liaise with the employer to sort out all the documents, what is required as per the immigration guidelines. We obviously go through all the contracts which is offered to you so that it's compliant with the immigration rules and regulations. And it also presents in a way that, we have already sought out the information from the applicant perspective that he will qualify to come here on a visa. So employer also need that insurance. Even if they are offering a job, they need that insurance whether he or she will be able to come to New Zealand or not. If yes, then what would be the visa category? So that's where we come in the picture to give that clarification to both the parties.
Okay, so there's quite a lot going on there, but it is. I guess it shows you that there is a lot involved in making this move, and the primary thing is to have a representative in New Zealand to help you, but also just to be prepared. So, as I said before, New Zealand has become very, very popular since COVID. Our Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern, is well known. Maybe we've won the Cricket Test Championship. But generally speaking, the lifestyle of New Zealand has become very attractive to lots of people. So what we are seeing is thousands of people wishing to migrate here. And as soon as the borders are open and this gets into the media, then we expect that number to increase massively. So I think what Hamneet is saying is now is the time to start preparing, because you do want to be at the front of that queue. Now, Hamneet, I want to come back to you because you've talked about the job and you've talked about the work visa that you get from the job. Then once you arrive in New Zealand, how do you actually get residency? Because, I think for most people, you're not kind of safe until you've got residency, correct?
That's right. Usually when people migrate to New Zealand or any other country, their main purpose or the goal is to actually achieve residence, to be a permanent resident of that country. And that's why when I mentioned earlier in this seminar that we do the assessment, in that assessment, we give an overview to our applicants that how they will qualify for the residence in future once they're here in New Zealand with a secured job. It is much easier to have to secure residence when you have a secured job offer from a New Zealand employer. But doing the assessment, there are times when people can actually qualify directly for residence offshore. They were used to times when we used to do residence from offshore as well. But now at the current times, I highly advise that, during the COVID times and the borders are closed, come to New Zealand, settle down here first. And because you have, in the assessment that we do, you have got a rough idea and clarification on how you will achieve the residence goal. We will do another assessment based on whatever be the current instructions would be when they will be in New Zealand. Right now, the possible residence options that we are exploring and the new residence program, which immigration has just introduced a couple of weeks ago, is giving us hope that we can help many migrants, even in New Zealand, and giving hope that the borders will open by next year. So that's the backup plan, which New Zealand is kind of having in place to sort out the current people in living in New Zealand so that they can invite people from offshore to settle down.
Fantastic. And Hamneet, obviously, you're originally from Punjab. You've been in New Zealand now for 10 years.
Yeah.
Not talking about immigration and the rules and the laws, what's New Zealand been like for you as a migrant? I know that 5% of our population are of Indian descent, so we're very well, Indian is very well received in this society. But from your experience, what's it been like?
I've actually, from my last and for all the conversation that I have been having with offshore migrants, that's the first question they ask. How are you feeling? How do you feel about New Zealand? Can we migrate here? Do we feel the same? So I think that's something, the assurance that they really want. And I, being a migrant, I came to New Zealand in 2012 as a student. I had my own share of experience. I had my own share of hassles, struggles, but I just said, look at me now. I'm super happy. My extended family is also here. I came to New Zealand. I called my brother. My extended family is here. My husband's family is also here. So it does. I don't miss really. It's just that I miss my parents at times because due to COVID, I'm not able to visit India. But other than that, New Zealand has given me a safe environment, a healthy environment to live in. I absolutely love living here. Why I call it safe? Because I don't have to think twice going middle of the night just nearby the beach and enjoy the environment. So I think that's the beautiful feeling that I really enjoy living in New Zealand. And I'm sure a lot of people would enjoy that. My family with their kids made this move. This is the right move to make for the betterment and for the future of their kids. There are a lot of migrants who have asked this question, and I would encourage, if not New Zealand, if Australia is also one of the country that you want to move to, I think there is not always the right time. Right now is the right time to achieve that goal.
Yeah, look, I think both countries have similar need for skills. I actually read in the Australian Financial Review yesterday that the New South Wales Premier is wanting to open the doors to 2 million people over the next 5 years to cure the skills shortage. So obviously we help people move to Australia as well, but
yes.
I think that both New Zealand and Australia have the same issue right now, which is our migration systems are based on skills. So if you have skills, then there is a demand for your skills, which means that the visa follows the skills. So that's the pathway, and that's why the employment aspect of it is so important. So, Hamneet, it's really good to hear your feedback. And just one other thing, do you interact with Indian nationals, or is it just Indian nationals that you are with, or do you have friends that are non-Indians? Tell me about your life here and,
yes,
the diversity that you live.
I do have a lot of obviously Indian friends here, and I do have non-Indian friends as well. There are people from Fiji that I'm friends with, and I even in my professional workforce, I deal with Fiji national clients as well. Indian national living in all across the world, even in UK, UAE. Lately, I've been getting a lot of contacts and inquiries from people living in UAE, Indian nationals who really want to make a move to New Zealand. With regards to my personal lifestyle, and I think, Scott, you would agree that how we celebrate Diwali in New Zealand. I have never celebrated Diwali back in India at that grand level where we celebrate here in New Zealand. The whole main viewers, if you can just Google it, the whole main street is Queen Street. That Queen Street is actually blocked for 3 days just to celebrate our festival, Diwali. So this will give you an idea that how welcome you may feel in this country, how the government as well contribute a lot to celebrate your own festivals, Eid, Diwali, even because this is just due to COVID times, we are not able to celebrate. But if you ask me, without COVID times, absolutely amazing environment and atmosphere.
Fantastic. Well, that's good to hear. So I think what we should just touch on before we start winding up is really there's two things happening now. So some people are getting through the border, nurses, healthcare professionals, some people who are engineers, some people that are working on government projects, but it is quite challenging, and it's quite difficult to get that border exception, and it costs more money as well. So the other alternative is to wait until the borders are open, and then you don't have to pay for a border exception fee, and it's just going to be cheaper, really. But I think because we think the borders are going to start opening in early 2022, if you start the process now, then you're not going to be ready until early 2022 anyway. So whilst the borders are closed and some people are getting border exceptions, even if you start your visa process now, only very few people would actually be coming this side of Christmas, because it takes a long time to get all your paperwork together and to get all your documents together, and for us to work through those documents, meet with you, and then put you in a position to get a job offer. So the reality is, because we're in mid-October, anyone who's on this webinar will be looking at getting job offers in early 2022 in anticipation of the borders opening. Do you agree with me on that, Hamneet?
Absolutely. For viewers listening to us, if you think that you want to work here in New Zealand with the New Zealand employer and you've got the right skills, I think the first step you can take, even thinking about New Zealand is the first step that you've already taken. Just so that we now have to put everything in place, we have to do the assessment so that you have that clear idea what should be the right expectation for the next couple of months. As Scott said, that the borders are hopefully going to open by next year. That's why this is the time where we can get your application ready, get everything in place, so that once the borders are open, we are the first one to submit. And you will be the first one to get the visa and get onto the plane to New Zealand.
Yay. Okay, so what are the things that take the longest? I know that with some of our other clients around the world, there have been delays with things like qualifications, getting that sort of paperwork. So maybe you can touch on one, what can we do now? What can the viewers do now to start this process? I mean, obviously fill in the free application form to see if you are actually eligible. But in terms of getting your documents together, Hamneet, and then secondly, what about registration, especially if you're in the health industry? Can you just touch on those two things, please?
Yes. So as you know, that the health industry is superbly in demand. Even during the COVID mids and the border is closed, if you are internationally qualified and if you're registered in certain occupation, you can actually apply for a border exemption request on securing an offer from a New Zealand employer. We've got a different team targeted, assisting just on the health occupations. So we can evaluate. There are levels of evaluations that we do. It's not just based on what you should be achieving, but whether your qualification is at the New Zealand comparable market, whether your experience is as per the New Zealand standards, whether you can get a job offer based on your current registration or current qualification or not, whether you need the NZQ assessment on your qualification, internationally gained qualification or not. So all these factors are actually covered in the assessment. In our assessment, after reviewing your transcripts, we actually give you a clear idea whether your qualification needs the NZQ assessment or not, whether you can directly apply for registration if you are from one of the health occupation. Even teachers, I have come across a lot of teachers who are internationally qualified, have got the English IELTS test just at the right bands. They can actually qualify to apply for a registration and they can get a job, because even teachers can make an application under current border exemption. But in order to give you an accurate information, we need a clear information from your side as well to give you a proper assessment on what the goals should be, what the ways should be to proceed further. So that's why, if you think that you are just not one of the health or teacher, anyone who think that they have got a skilled experience and role, just fill in the free eligibility assessment form. Just take 5 minutes of your day. Once it gets to us, we will contact you. You will have a 15-minute free consultation where you will have a rough idea whether it's a potential way to proceed to New Zealand or not. I am very honest in my assessments and in my 15-minute consultation and as well, just to give you, because it's time and money that you're investing in, and it should be all worth it.
Yeah, look, and I think being the founder of the business, one thing that we don't want to do is waste people's time or money. And watching so many people who have dreams to migrate and then they're not able to migrate, the way that we deal with this is that we tell you right from the start, yes, you have a chance. No, you have no chance, which is difficult to say sometimes, but we will tell you right at the beginning before you've spent any money. Some people, they are 50-50, and we'll say, look, you need to do this, or you need another year, or you need another qualification, and then you'll be able to come here. So we are very clear right from the outset, and that's why Hamneet is asking you to do that eligibility assessment. That way you have clarity around, what your pathway is. And that for us is the best way forward. And then we're only working with happy people who we know are able to migrate, and then we can assist you, and basically all parties are happy. So look, I think that probably wraps us up. It's very short. I mean, we've been under 40 minutes. There's so much to talk about, but the next step really is just to fill in that assessment form. And then you can have a 15 minutes with Hamneet, because every single person on this webinar will have their own unique situation, their own questions, their own discussions. Can I bring a dog? What about my parents? What's the age limit? What about my children? All these sorts of really complex things we can't cover off because it's individual. So, it's the most important thing is to actually tailor it for you as a person and make sure that you're getting the right information from a licensed immigration advisor. So, Hamneet, have you got any final words for the audience tonight?
Thank you so much, Scott, for this. And I believe this is our second webinar, and we will try and do every month and try and give as much information in terms of what's happening in New Zealand, what should be the right expectations. As Scott said, we are big team of advisors here, and our main intention and the honest intention is to help people very selflessly to come to New Zealand, and even people living in non-shore as well, to have a clear pathway. That's what we do. That's what I can sleep at night peacefully, where I can help. Honestly, this is something that gives me that intention, and I can sleep at night peacefully because I'm helping people to achieve their lifetime goal. It's not easy to relocate countries, and I completely understand, but it's worth it. I'm whosoever I can assist, I'm sure that I'll be able to make it a very good journey for you to come to New Zealand.
Thank you, Hamneet. Thank you very much, Hamneet, for joining us today. You've got exceptional knowledge, and we're very privileged to have you here talking to everybody about this very detailed subject. And thank you, everybody, for joining us wherever you are in the world. And congratulations on making the first step to moving to New Zealand just by coming on this webinar. So good night, and we hope to see you down here. We'll talk again soon. Bye now. Bye.
Good night.